Do you remember this place? Well, if you've been subscribed to my channel for at least 3 years, you probably do. But if you don't worry. I'll explain what we're looking at. Hey everyone, today we are revisiting an iconic location known as the Scranton Lace Factory. This is a huge manufacturing plant that spans an entire city block that I first explored back in 2016. If you want to see what the inside of this place looks like and to learn the history about it, check out my first video that'll be linked down below in the description. But since that time, a lot of updates and changes have taken place, which I'm going to share with you. I'm also going to give you a look at the property from the ground level, and then later on we're going to throw the drone up in the air and get some views from the sky. So if you're ready, come along with me. So from my first visit back in 2016, this place has really changed a lot. And I'm going to share with you some of the details I've learned and relive some of my memories when I was here. But this was a lace manufacturing plant that operated from 1890 to 2002, and they announced on a day of work that it was closing abruptly at the end of shift to never open stores again. It sat abandoned for well over a decade, and then plans were rumored about changing this into businesses, apartments, but nothing took place until 2018 when they started doing demolition work. And that's when the plans came to fruition and were able to figure out what they were going to be doing with this place. So some of the plans involved for here are going to be considered making this into an urban complex or urban village. They're going to have townhouses, businesses such as a bakery is rumored, a daycare, I think maybe a salon. It's going to be a massive complex where people could come to not only live here, but to shop here and help bring life back into this part of town. This has been an eyesore for a long period of time, and even though it's sad that some of the buildings are being demoed, it is good that they are doing something with the property. And what I've learned is that the buildings that were in really bad shape, that were basically compromised with their structural integrity, were razed. They were brought to the ground because they weren't salvageable. The buildings that we see standing here are the ones that were in better condition, and the ones that they are going to be, I guess you could say, refurbishing into apartments and businesses. So I don't know if they're going to build new structures upon this or if they're just going to utilize what they have here, but various parts of the property, there's buildings standing, buildings gone. I'm going to actually take you for a ride around the property now in my car and show you how it looks around from the ground level. And then once we finish that, we'll return to this spot here, throw up the drone, and see how it looks from the sky. Now at any given time there was at least 1,000 employees working here, and it was basically an all-inclusive place of employment, meaning that they really catered to taking care of their employees. They had a bowling alley, a gymnasium, a small theater, cafeteria, hair salon, and doctor's office. So they made sure that when the employees were here, that any needs that were wanted were taken care of on site. So looking at this piece of the property here, if you look right in the middle here where the fence opening is, that's actually where my entry point was when I first visited here. There was a open doorway that led to was essentially like the boiler room, and that's actually what is no longer standing. You can still see the smokestack, but all that pile of rubble and decay was the boiler room there. It's where they would have powered and heated the entire complex, which I mentioned does span an entire city block. It is a huge piece of property. And I even remember down here in this area where the rubble is in front of us here, I found some individuals in the building that had balloons tied to Bibles. I don't know what they were doing, some type of weird photo shoot, but that was inside that part of the building right there. And there's the upper floors, and which was the front half of the building. It's very eerie seeing it this way now. It's like a skeleton of its former self, but still very cool at the same time. And up here is the attic way. I actually walked that entire attic space, which went from that part of the building all the way to the back where the clock tower is. And you got an open doorway up top there. So this is a place that I got lost in my first time here because it's just so expansive, so many different levels that resembled each other, and there was two different sets of buildings that were split by a almost like an alleyway courtyard type thing with catwalks that connect to the buildings, so very easy to lose your orientation in here. And here's looking at the demo work area here. They're piling scrap metal. Yeah, this part of the area is almost unrecognizable now. So we'll continue around to the other side. So right here is that alleyway courtyard I mentioned earlier. This runs the entire length of the property and at one point was accessible, and buildings were lined on both sides. If you can still see the catwalks there too, I'll zoom in and show you. In the distance there behind the excavator arm, there's a catwalk going across it. It's one of two. I believe the second one is now demolished. So right here is a loading dock area and one of the intact buildings. And as we see, a lot of the inner structures are now gone. If you look in here too, you can see the pillars. Those are the same type we found in the abandoned subway tunnels in Rochester. Same design. But it's no surprise that these part of the buildings are gone, because these were definitely in worse shape. And you can see this one here was built in 1919, so they kind of built it in increments. They added on as necessary to meet the demand. Now I'm going to pull over here and talk about this area. So this part of the building right here was pretty interesting, because that's where the bowling alley was and the doctor's office, and going towards the middle part is where the gymnasium was. The back half seemed more like the leisurely part of the business here, and the front half was where they did the work. But it's simply incredible how it looks now. I mean, this was all intact here. But up there somewhere is the bowling alley. I think it had 2 lanes, and it had a manual ball return, manual pin setup. And again, right here on the corner of the building somewhere, I want to say by those windows right there is where the doctor's office was. There was a couple little rooms for like patients for being checked out. And you can see the additional catwalks there too, connecting the buildings. So very cool to see it kind of before and after. And again, if you didn't see what this looks like when it was intact, you'll want to watch my first video. I covered pretty much the entire property, provided some drone footage, and covered a lot of the history on it. But with the changes that have been made, I thought it was necessary to share an update, because this is one of my first big explorations, and one of the most fascinating buildings I've ever been into. One of the largest too, spanning a city block. It's quite unheard of these days. And it was really left me in awe when I filmed it. So right there is a look at the famous clock tower, which I believe is a historical site now that has to remain intact. But that was a beacon for the city of sorts when it was in operation. And if we zoom in again on the lower level here, we'll be able to see some of the entryways and different passages and levels. And even over here, it almost looks like a haunted building of sorts, with the tarps blowing in the wind. And as we go across the next building, we'll see police tape, which I'm guessing is for some pretty sketchy areas. And that right here, as we pan over further, this is the back of the administration building. That is where they housed the offices, and they had boardrooms in there and meeting rooms and offices and office space. And in the basement of that building is actually where they held a flea market type event or auction, where they have boxes and boxes of leftover products that they allow the public to come in to purchase. And when I was in the basement of that building, I did find some remnants down there still with prices and boxes and labels of the Scranton Lace manufacturing print on it. So that's that building there. And there was another building next to it, I believe, or at least in the backside here, which is now gone. I think this is where they started their demo work back here. But we're going to continue around now. We'll go to the front side of the administration building, and then we'll pop out and throw up the drone. So this part of the property here is where the demo work first started. This was the furthest and worst part of the properties here. And now it's just a, it's like a shell and platform here. This is the same spot where we started our video. And I kind of want to pull over just to show you. This is the administration building. Right there next to the doors, they did have a plaque that said Scranton Lace right there. It has been removed. But down in the basement again is where they held like the market. And this corner right here was a huge office. I remember it had carpeted flooring and some old-time furniture and stuff like that. And here's another more modern shipping dock. And up there is the sign still, Scranton Lace Company, and the clock tower. So it's apparently an open pit here that's has water in the bottom. And this is right next to where the boiler area was. I was talking to some of the gentlemen working here and the on-site bosses, and they explained that the smokestack is staying. All the remaining buildings that are standing are going to remain standing. This is going to be senior living here with like some open air balconies, and in the back somewhere a bar, restaurant, and apartments in the back there, and a museum area somewhere in the middle where people could come and see the history of the location here. That open pit though is pretty interesting. I don't know what that was used for. So it just goes to show that it's always a good idea to be polite and respectful and strike up conversation with people that are working here. They're usually pretty open-minded to sharing their knowledge and information. Now the one thing I can't find out is when this is going to be completed. They made a joke saying, well, it's being funded by taxpayers' dollars, so there's no exact time frame, and if there is, it's probably going to get pushed ahead. But they're still doing the demo work. They have probably 6 months to another year's worth of demo work, cleaning up all the scrap metal, getting all the debris cleaned up, and then starting the construction of making this into businesses and apartments. So long ways to go, but good to see and to learn what it looks like at this point today. But with that said, let's throw up the drone in the air and get some awesome footage from the sky. Okay, so it was a look back and revisit of the Scranton Lace Factory. Just got the drone down. I think we got some pretty spectacular footage. I actually went through 2 batteries because there was so much to see. I snapped photos, got footage, and it looks completely different than when it did in 2016. And that's the whole reason I came here, is because change has taken place. It's not just sitting here rotting, decaying, or being demolished. Something is being done with the property. It's being repurposed. And I do have other locations in mind similar to this where I'm going to revisit it, show you what has changed either physically or with the situation involved with it. But it's pretty neat to see how it's evolved over time. And once the final completion of the work is done, I will return and make a video of that, showing the museum, the restaurant, the bar, even the townhouses if I'm able to, just to show how it's come full circle from nothing to a mega manufacturing plant, to an abandoned city complex, to the demo work, to a repurposed facility. So pretty cool, and I'm really excited to be able to share this with you guys. Lastly, if you're thinking about coming here, you missed your chance. This is actively watched now. There is active security cameras, and it's fenced off. There's always people here patrolling the area. So if you come here, observe it like I did from the distance. If you want to see the inside of it, just go back and watch my first video, but don't attempt to go there. You will get yourself in trouble. If you guys have any comments or questions regarding the video, or saw anything that you like, leave your thoughts down below. I'll do my best to respond to them. If you happen to enjoy this adventure and revisit of this location, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up. And lastly, if you haven't done so, make sure you follow me on Facebook, where I do share photos and details about my adventures. And also you'll find links to my Patreon page where you could donate to get exclusive access to upcoming projects and merchandise such as this in my merchandise shop. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in the next video.